Hi everyone, I'm at the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco, California, and the museum was actually uh, thought of by Walt Disney's daughter, Diane Disney, who I actually wrote a letter to when this was being built and said I was excited to see it, and she did write back, so that's nice. I need to find that letter though, but anyway, that's a side note. Um, so it is dedicated to the life of Walt Disney, and we'll go in and see what they have inside. Now, the museum is in the Presidio of San Francisco, which is actually former Army barracks, and they mention that just over here, it's part of Infantry Row in the Presidio. It says 30th U.S. Infantry Regiment, 1901 to 1941. So converted buildings, and the Walt Disney Museum is in this one just down here. Now, I'm a huge fan of Walt Disney, obviously, as you might have noticed on this channel. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they have inside, and we'll go in. And this section here is a replica of Walt Disney's Main Street apartment at Disneyland. It's the closest I'll probably get to this, unfortunately. And this whole room is about his childhood and growing up in the teenage years, including when he was a World War I ambulance driver. They also have a lot of his family on display, including his mom and dad, and then Walt Disney as a baby, and a certificate of baptism.
Doc Sherwood had me come over one time and roll my crayons with my big cheese tablet and draw pictures of Rupert for him. So he got Rupert out, and Rupert, being a stallion, was very restless. And I was trying to draw him, and I get one stick down her leg.
And then here are some family photographs, including some that Walt took himself, just again throughout his early years. A lot of family and friends. And they also have a lot of drawings Walt Disney made in high school over here. Artistic endeavors began early.
It was a big day, the day I got on that California Limited. I just as free and happy, you know. 1923. But I failed. I think it's important to have a good failure.
And they have a room dedicated to early Disney Studios, post-Laugh-O-Gram films, including the Alice comedies. So a whole section dedicated to very early days, including old cameras that you can see on the side there. And what I also like was there's a letter from Walt Disney saying, "Don't hesitate, do it now," to one of his colleagues.
And it would always fit.
So this room is the beginning of Mickey Mouse in that animation.
In the days of Steamboat Willie, it was picture first. And then we used to put the sound on afterwards, and in those days you couldn't do what we call dubbing today, where you could mix a lot of tracks. It wasn't yet science that you could
Some of
get
the
away with.
groundbreaking
So
work
we
they've
used to
done
have
with
to do everything
sound at the
one
time.
take. And we used to have to run the cartoon. We'd have the fellows with the sound effects, we had the people with the voices, we had the orchestra going, and everybody had to sync it. Keep that thing right on the top. We had a way of doing it.
And this is the earliest known drawing of Mickey Mouse. So pretty cool. And they had a wall featuring a lot of early Mickey Mouse merchandise on display here, and this is what really helped Walt achieve financial stability with the studio, so it's interesting to see all of these pieces.
Then we used to put the sound on afterwards.
And then they had a lot of displays of various animated features, including key ones like Snow White. You can see here some of the actual cells from the animation, and some of the sketch artwork as well, including different character angles and features. So pretty cool to see this on display. And then some of the things from the premiere itself, which the Carthay Circle Theater is a big feature of the theme parks at both Florida and California Adventure, so kind of cool to see that as well. And here's just another animation cell of Snow White and the actual Seven Dwarfs also. So again, a lot of unique things that you wouldn't normally be able to see, including these figurines used for determining the dwarves' features. And then here's a detail of Snow White, um, her character traits, and then of course the room continues on with other animation features, including Pinocchio. So a lot of those features are included here, character design, and then I did like that next to this they had a desk on display with the animation. I just like this desk setup. I thought it was pretty cool to see. Shortly after that, they had Walt's badge on display, so that was also really cool to see. There were a lot of pretty cool quotes throughout the museum from Walt Disney regarding various things. This was related to a tough time he was going through with the studio strikes, and so I thought pretty inspirational there. But then, after the studio strikes and after the war, you get to various cartoons, such as Mr. Toad, other animated features like Alice in Wonderland seen here. Peter Pan was mentioned, kind of that era in the 50s. And then the next room was actually really cool. This is actually Walt's bowling lawn bag and some of his personal items, including miniatures and then an Academy Awards necklace that he had given Lily, and then personal home movies from him, his own home movie camera, which was cool to see. And then here's a close-up again of that lawn bowling bag with his name on it. Always cool to see the personal effects. Then this room was cool too because it emphasized Walt's love of miniatures, and he had this idea for creating what would be called Disneylandia, which is a very early precursor to Disneyland. This would be a traveling roadshow of various miniature scenes that would depict various times in American history. And so you could see actual miniatures and the amount of detail he put into these miniatures. And, you know, this actually, of course, classic Walt Disney style expanded into a further interest, a bigger interest into the eventual Mickey Mouse Park and Disneyland. But then further on, we're back to more close-ups of different miniatures that he had collected. These are actually like the pieces for the collection, like plates and candlesticks and shelves and various things as part of that display. So that was pretty cool there. And then there was a list here that he gave his housekeeper of his favorite foods that they had found. Some of them included examples you see here, like Jell-O and canned chili and beans. Pretty simple taste. There are things like salads and spam and eggs specifically, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Kind of, you know, pretty, again, simple foods. Nothing too wild or crazy there. It's just pretty simple list like you see here. And then here's just even more miniatures, again, close up, some books and things of that nature that they also had on display. And so that was pretty interesting. And then they have a Griffith Park bench, similar to the one they display at Disneyland, and similar to the one Walt would have sat on when he had the initial ideas for an amusement park. And unlike at Disneyland, you can actually sit on this one, so I took the opportunity to take a seat on it. And this is what I like to call the Creative Explosion Years room. A lot of really cool things to see in here that we'll look at closer, including a lot about Disneyland. And then they have the Lilybell model railroad, backyard railroad in this room, which really helped inspire the idea for Disneyland. And of course there are a lot of details in this backyard miniature also. Pretty sure he had the coolest backyard at the time. And I like this quote, "It's simple and to the point." And then for from here it goes into some of the initial plans for Mickey Mouse Park, which would be across from the Burbank lot, the studio lot. I did a video on this on my channel as well, like the actual location. A freeway actually cuts through this spot because the idea got bigger and bigger. And then they had this model for the Fantasyland castle, and you'll notice the front of it is different because Walt Disney, the story goes, flipped around the front and the back of the castle, and that's what we have today. So this is the initial model looking at the front, which the top is really the back. And then they had models of like the Mark Twain riverboat and the Omnimover, like actual models. You can see Walt with the riverboat model, and then an Autopia car on display, an old school Autopia car. And it actually looked a little more, I don't know, complicated, I guess, or harder to drive back then. And then this is the part that I'm really impressed with. It's a model of Disneyland that they have with various rides throughout the years. So it's not exactly like Disneyland as it is today. It includes some rides that are no longer there, or attractions like Carousel of Progress, the initial idea for Space Mountain. You can see here the Rivers of America. Just very detailed model with, again, kind of Disneyland through the years, not necessarily one specific time, but there were a lot of details in this model, including all the different areas. Here's like the back of the park with the pirate ship that was originally in Fantasyland in the early days of Disneyland. And so I just was really impressed with this model. Everyone who was at the museum spent a lot of time looking at it. So yes, very impressive overall. I always spend a lot of time looking at this. And then they had Main Street models. I'm a big fan of Main Street USA, so I took some time to look at some of these models for the buildings on Main Street at Disneyland. Just like seeing these blueprints, that was really cool to see. And then from there was the original tickets that they had at Disneyland back when you paid a ticket per ride. And then I really like this Main Street poster a lot. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I wish they sold this here. Some more concept art over there. And I don't know, kind of cool old souvenirs that you can get at Disneyland. So I like this cabinet a lot. And then for the next area, there was animatronic bird you could play with. Then here's some models for the Carousel of Progress, which is currently in Magic Kingdom at Disney World. I actually really do like this attraction a lot. Wish it was back at Disneyland. And from there was focus on also the just general World's Fair projects that Walt had worked on. So I wanted to showcase all of those here, and then the future plans for Epcot, the actual city that would be built as part of Epcot, which is always very interesting to me in terms of like it's an urban planning project Walt Disney had. So they include the models and concept art there. And then they had the Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln concept art. A lot of it is used in the attraction itself at Disneyland, and then the model for the animatronic Lincoln. And then from there they had a section dedicated to Mary Poppins, including art for animatics for the movie, and letters to Julie Andrews, some pictures that are actually also included in Saving Mr. Banks, including Walt Disney with P.L. Travers and Julie Andrews. Just knowing that story, that was interesting. And then Walt had a Showman of the World award, which was a very fitting sort of end to this display. And this is what I call just the sad room. It is the day Walt Disney died, all the press around that, and everyone's recognition of his many, many accomplishments. Just kind of the artwork of the day, just sad to see, mainly Mickey Mouse, but the Disney characters all very sad on that day in 1966. So kind of a sad room, but then I will say luckily there's a bright spot. It goes into a more inspirational room. There's some quotes here, many of his films and achievements just displayed at the very end, kind of like a last boost of inspiration, seeing all of this. So I like that it ends in kind of a very happy, optimistic place, which is exactly how Walt would have, I'm sure, wanted it to end. You end with like feeling good and inspirational quotes. So I thought that was a really great finale to the museum itself. Okay, so leaving the museum now is definitely well worth it. I would really recommend everyone go and see it. A lot of interesting artifacts and mementos that we saw in there, so definitely recommend checking this out if you're ever in San Francisco. You will not regret it. Okay, and I wanted to show, actually, now back home, but wanted to show a couple of the things I also purchased here. It's a little surprise ending here. Or purchased at the Walt Disney Family Museum while I was there. Also holding the camera because it'll be a little shaky. I'm doing that because the sun is really hitting the spot in the dashboard I usually put it, and so it'd be pretty apparent that there'd be major sun streaks in the shot otherwise. So anyway, in case you're wondering why I didn't just put it down on the dashboard, there you go, but no one's probably wondering that. I did get a book about the museum. Anytime I go to museums and I'm interested in them, I usually get the book because it's not something you can get online. That's usually the gist of what I'll purchase, is like, am I interested in this and can I get it online? And this one includes a lot of details. I'm using one hand to hold it, so sorry, not going to flip through it, but a lot of details about the things that they had in the museum, including some of the things we saw today. So got the book, coffee table book, and I like the picture because, you know, it's got Walt and Lily on it. I really like the picture. The next thing I got was actually something I wanted for a while. I used to have this documentary. It's a Walt Disney documentary they made for his 100th birthday, so in 2001. I was in college at the time, and it feels like that was just yesterday, but it was a while ago. And my original copy of this got super scratched, and unfortunately it's not available on digital. And then it's also just not available online for the most part. And that is Walt, the Man Behind the Myth. Same picture. DVD documentary. They had Blu-ray for, you know, for another $10, but it's already $20, so, you know, just went with the DVD. But it's a pretty interesting, for any Walt Disney fans, I highly recommend this documentary. Diane Disney, his daughter, you know, put together the Walt Disney Family Foundation, and one of the things she did before launching the museum that we just saw was help, I believe, fund the documentary. So it's like a 2-hour Walt Disney's Life documentary. Highly recommend it. Again, not really available online, so I bought it there. Then lastly, I went back and forth on this and even went back to my car and I was like, should I get this? I thought about it, then I did. And that is this metal e-ticket tin, and I think because this is, I don't know, maybe this is in mirror mode, so you're seeing it backwards, but we'll see when I edit this. It's a giant e-ticket with the rides, including like Submarine Voyage, Pirates, Haunted Mansion. It's pretty cool. I have a lot of Disneyland stuff in my garage, and so I'll probably hang this tin up. I've not seen this online elsewhere. I could be mistaken, I could be wrong, but it seemed like it was only at the museum, so went back and forth on it and got it. Anyway, I'm probably turning redder and redder because it's getting hotter and hotter in the car. It's a pretty hot day, so I'm going to go ahead and now end the video, but thanks again for watching. Hopefully you found it interesting, and I do highly recommend you visit the Walt Disney Family Museum if you are even the slightest bit into Walt Disney the man. So, well, I also realized, look, there's the spot shaving, and you probably saw that the whole video, and there's no fixing that now, so I'll acknowledge that too. Right there too, yeah. It is what it is, though. Okay, anyway, hopefully you enjoyed it. Like I said, visit the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco. I highly recommend it, and it's pretty cool what they're doing, and it's not part of the Walt Disney Company. It's a separate foundation looking at the life and achievements of Walt Disney. So I really like what they do and their cause, and it's cool. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.